Everyone, we're going to call tonight's meeting to order, starting with an approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none. I do need a motion to head into closed session. We're going to be discussing the following matters. Item 4.1 is the approval of the closed council minutes from June 24th. We also have a community risk assessment presentation, which is a matter in respect of which a council, board, committee, or other body may hold a closed meeting under another act. This one is the Emergency Management and Civil Protections Act, section 2.1-3-7. And then we also have committee appointments, which is personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I please have a motion to go into closed? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We are now in closed session. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the open portion of tonight's meeting. We are going to begin with the singing of our national anthem, so I'd ask that you rise if you're able, please.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Before our open session, we did have a closed session and we do have a rise and report from that. The recommendation is that the minutes of the 2024 June 24th closed council minutes be approved, and that the community risk assessment presentation regarding a matter in respect of which a council, board, committee, or other body may hold a closed meeting under another act, the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, be received, and that confidential report CPS 2024-45, committee appointments regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, be received, and that council appoint Katie Atkinson, Chris DeCastro, and Robbie Mayer to the Affordable Housing Task Force, and that the terms of reference for Access Orangeville be amended to increase the committee composition by one additional member, and that council appoint Karen Murphy-Fritz and Sarah Clark to Access Orangeville, and that council and that the terms of reference for Sustainable Orangeville be amended to increase the committee composition by 2 additional members, and that council appoint Jody Elchison, Joshua Pickering, and Ellen Whitfield to Sustainable Orangeville, and that council accept the resignations from Avery Wetton and Paige Knight from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and that council appoint Ishika Singla and Victoria Servos to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and that council confirm the appointments of Warren Maycock and Grant Armstrong to the Orangeville Police Services Board after having received satisfactory police record checks, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next, we have the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the following meetings be approved, which is the July 8th council minutes. Can I please have a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh. Questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Next, we have question period. Is there anyone joining us via telephone, Mona? No, seeing nobody. Was there anybody in the gallery who wishes to ask a question tonight of council? Go ahead. Just a reminder that you have 3 minutes. And if you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. I might be getting a little ahead of the delegation and the discussion tonight, but I'd just like to know if a speed study has ever been conducted for Spencer Avenue.
Sure, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, there has. There was, that speed study came out and it basically proved that there was not an issue. However, it was close. Like there is speeding on that street, but not enough to warrant further traffic changes or whatnot. So yes.
Mr. Koslek?
Yep, through your worship, we did a speed study in 2023 and 2024 for about 2.5 months. During that time, there was about 100,000 vehicles went through the area. And there was less than 0.03% of the traffic going above 60 kilometers an hour. So 3 cars out of 1,000 were going above 60 kilometers an hour, which isn't, still speeding, but it's not a high volume that we'd see.
Okay, thank you.
Was there anybody else in the gallery wishing to ask a question? Yep, come on up. And your name and address for the record, please. And we'll just make sure the mic's on as well.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and town staff. Name is Rick Ugolini, Cedar Drive, Orangeville. I'd like to make a comment on what Matthew just mentioned here. At what point is speeding a concern? 1%, 5%, 10%, 20%? Anybody have an answer?
Mr. Koslek?
Through your worship, I'd have to check the values, I guess what's determined a significant event, but normally when you see speeding more in the 5 or 6%, that's usually a case where you have concerns. In this area, it's less than 3 cars in 1,000. It could be an ambulance, could be anything. So it's typically not as much of a concern as other areas.
Now, I live on Cedar, and there was a black box put on the street 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, well, last month. And according to what I was told, that people were speeding, 13% of the public was speeding, which is far greater than Spencer. And it was in July, and it was only for a 4-day period because the battery ran out. So is Cedar Drive a problem at 13%?
Through your worship, it may be an issue, I guess, without knowing the data and the conditions. Can't comment more on it, but it would be something you'd look at in more detail.
Okay. And I also have a question about this OPP wage increase, this huge 14.5% increase for the wages of the OPP. How much is that going to reflect on our tax bill?
You want to take that one? Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I see the second part of the question. I have no idea. To the first part of the question, you were looking at 7 people who, and basically senior team in here that has no influence upon what the OPP would charge. That is something you'd have to follow up with the OPP. It's all done through the province.
Okay.
Just my additional comment to that would be that the OPP polices 400, and I can't remember the exact number, 400 municipalities roughly within the province of Ontario. And the way that they charge is based on the full amount, and then it's allocated per municipality based on calls for service and geographic size. So it's totally a calls for service piece. So if it increased 14%, that doesn't mean your tax bill is going to go up 14%. It means that those costs will be redistributed amongst all of the 400 municipalities, and based on call for services, once those contracts come up, that would be when you'll see that reflection.
Okay.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Just, you kind of scooted by the other comment and we didn't get a chance to weigh in. Your commentary about, Cedar Drive and the 13% and what's important and what's not. All areas of town are important, and any speeding is important to us for sure. It would be, I guess, it depends upon, to me, how loud and persistent is the issue. Certainly, we've heard lots about Cedar Drive, and I've shared that previously. We've heard lots about Settlers Creek. We've heard significant things about Elizabeth Street, the west end of Zina Street. Like it's continuous. I mean, the rest of my compatriots
I agree with you.
could talk about, 3 or 4 other streets that we hear from as well. And so I guess the commentary would be is we take all of those things seriously, and there isn't a size of problem. We want our streets to be safe and our town to be safe, just as you do.
Well, another thing I'd like to bring up is there any chance of getting the speeds reduced in school zones? Like most municipalities in the US are down to 15 miles an hour, which in Canadian terms, it's 24 kilometers an hour. And they usually have a policeman sitting there as well. Could that be done with this town? Because the speed doesn't change in residential at all, other than 50 to 40.
Well, the previous iteration of council did make the decision to change the speed limits throughout the community and reduce all the residential area to 40. So yes, essentially, if somebody wanted to bring a notice of motion to reduce speed limits, we could ask staff to bring back a report that would indicate how we would do that and whether it would be recommended or not. So at any point, a member of council could potentially bring that forward.
I mean, if you reduce speed zones around schools, people would be going slower to begin with. Because you're approaching a school zone, especially a community zone where the fines are doubled. I just see that that would be a good idea. Like I said, a lot of municipalities in the US are down to 15 miles an hour. And that's the way it is. And you don't travel 16 because there's a cop there.
Yeah, no, we appreciate your feedback. Yeah, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship, there's some good comments here tonight. I would suggest that if you brought that up and put it out on your local social media site, that you would get.
I just did.
Well,
this is my social media.
Well, put it out there and allow the citizens of Orangeville to respond to an idea of going 24 miles or 24 kilometers an hour in a school zone. I think you'd get fried. I could be wrong, but we went through and tried to put through 40 and the pushback was tremendous. So to go lower, you're already crawling at 40. At 24, I don't know what you're doing. I could run along beside the car and push it. But I'm just suggesting I don't think you're going to get support for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your feedback. Oh, Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Yes, through your worship. Back to the salary increase for the OPP. When the consultant gave us estimated savings, they did take in consideration wage increases. I don't remember exactly the amount, but even with the wage increases in the projections, it was still significant savings compared to OPS.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the gallery? Seeing none, we will move into presentations and delegations. We do have Sherry, the Community Watch from Settlers Creek, if you want to come on up to the front. And we're going to be talking about speeding on Spencer and Alder. And Renee is going to be delegating as well, I believe. Yes. Okay, perfect. Can you just turn on your mic again?
Okay. Put on? There we go.
Perfect.
All right.
Sherry, can we bring you a chair over? You're good? Okay.
You can have this one. I'd rather stand. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us time to speak here on behalf of our neighborhood, Settlers Creek. First, I would just like to say that I came across the idea of using ASE in our area as I was driving through Caledon East, and I saw they had one set up by the schools there. My colleague Sherry here has done all the legwork. She's learning about what the system is and what it could do for our area and hopefully other areas in the town as well. I believe she dropped off copies earlier this week. So many of us moved to Orangeville because of housing costs and also a great place to settle, raise our families. Orangeville has been a safe place for our children and ourselves. There was little traffic issues. Now over time with the growth, the environment is not as peaceful. We do have issues with speeding that goes on throughout the day and night. Our concern is children having the ability to head to school safely, to ride their bikes after school, to play freely in the neighborhoods. We have an older population. They're not as agile, not as quick, and that would like to walk about the neighborhoods as well. We all just want to enjoy our neighborhood without worry of the traffic that speeds through daily. Rushing to and from this is for the cities. It's not for our home of Orangeville. Myself, I'm a cyclist, but I don't dare ride on the roads here in town for fear of being hit. And we find that traffic is coming from East Garifraxa. It comes and it uses Spencer and Alder as shortcuts to get to the bypass, and they tend to gun it down the streets to shave off a few minutes of their time. And we really appreciate our voices being heard and the measures that you've had put in place to help with our situation. Some has helped, especially for being able to cross the street at the stop signs that were placed. That has made a really big difference in being able to go about the neighborhood. We realize that police can't be there all the time, and it would be a high cost to have extra policing. So what we were suggesting is the ASE system. And the only message that we feel that would be heard is a harsh one, which is tickets to offenders. Nothing will replace police, but our hope is this will help with excessive speeds. We do not want to see our insurance rates climb due to driving of a few careless people. Our goal is to avoid any serious accidents in our community. I have a message for one resident. He can't be here tonight. His name is John, and he says that we hear cars racing throughout the neighborhood at all hours of the night. Cars do not stop at the crosswalk by the school to allow people regardless of school in session. The flashing speed sign is a good attempt, but often ignored. When you drive the speed limit throughout the neighborhood, you're often tailgated. I fear that there isn't a plan in place soon. Someone or a pet will be hurt or worse. Not sure what is best for us, maybe the ASE system, but something needs to be done sooner than later, especially with the new school year upon us. And in closing, I just want to thank you for your time and hope that you consider what we've put forward. And I don't know if Sherry would like to say.
We do need you just to get a little closer to the microphone so they can hear you online as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. The ASC is to be used to protect our most vulnerable residents and to help them feel comfortable while walking, running, playing, cycling, and generally enjoying their community. We have so many new residents in Orangeville and Settlers Creek mainly, and they've left the city behind. They want somewhere safe to raise their children, and they chose Orangeville for a reason. And after, the personal emails that I get, the messages, I just feel that the community watch program that we're trying to initiate, I just feel like we're letting some of these people down, that we're not doing our very best. The stop signs are ignored. They will roll the stop, which is a problem. And the minute they've gone past the intersection, they'll gun it to make up for those 2-3 seconds they lost at that four-way stop. So it's just a vicious cycle. And we really do appreciate all the effort that the town has segregated to us, that you've given us the stop signs, the flashing speed, that shows you your speed. That hasn't gone unnoticed. It's just hasn't solved the whole problem. It's not going to, sorry, I'm out of time.
That's your time limit. Thank you so much. Was there any questions or comments from members of council? Questions, anything anybody wants to add? No. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And we will be discussing this later in the agenda with a notice of motion that Deputy Mayor has prepared. Okay, next we will invite up Katrina Lemire, our Economic Development and Culture Manager, regarding the Economic Development and Culture Annual Report. I would like to ask that Council consider waiving the 5-minute time frame in the procedure bylaw to permit Katrina to address Council for a maximum of 10. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Over to you, Katrina. You got 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Post, members of council, colleagues, and community members. Tonight, I'm here to represent the Economic Development and Cultures team. And every year we publish an annual report. to help us better understand our local business community and track our office's results. The complete 2023 report with all of its details is included in tonight's council package, but I wanted to take the opportunity to present it some high-level information to you as well.
Can you just pull the mic a little closer to you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah,
Better?
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I wanted to start with a quick refresher about the work of the town's EDC office. So at a high level, really, we aim to ensure that Orangeville is a great place to do business. We offer support and resources to both new and existing local businesses based on their specific needs. Specifically, we provide tailored support to entrepreneurs and to small business owners through the Orangeville and Area Small Business and Enterprise Center. You'll find I use a lot of acronyms in this. I'm going to try and shorten it up. That's why I need the 10 minutes. We also have a very specific focus on fostering tourism and culture in our community. An important component of our work is also engaging with our local businesses in a variety of ways, including events and workshops. But really, to effectively do this work, we really do need to understand our business community. Can't figure this out. Sorry, everyone. It's like thinking. Okay. So understanding our business community is really the primary objective behind our annual reporting cadence. When conducting our review, we include both an external analysis of our local business community, and this helps us to identify trends, opportunities, and challenges. We also include an internal review to track the effectiveness of the EDC's office, our progress, our productivity. And it's very helpful to bring those two pieces together to really understand what work is being done around economic development and culture in Orangeville. So we'll get right to the results for 2023. We start with high-level key economic indicators. As you'll see here, we really talk about total jobs and total business counts. These numbers are a very good overall indication of performance of a community, and they're very easy to measure year over year, so they're really great to track for our team. In 2023, as you'll see from these numbers above, our local economy experienced steady growth, overcoming prevalent market trends such as rising inflation, labor challenges. Many of the things that we've heard in the news were very impactful in our business community. Despite that, the steady growth did continue. Overall, our total employment grew by 3%. This was slightly above Ontario's provincial rate of 2%. We also saw an increase in the number of businesses operating in Orangeville. A 5% increase was entirely led by small and entrepreneurial enterprises in our community. Our unemployment rate in Orangeville grew to 6% and slightly was above the provincial rate of 5.6. I will note these numbers are from December 2023 as per the annual report. That number has now declined to 5.6%, and we're seeing improvement in that area, which is great news in 2024. In terms of overall development, our industrial, commercial, and institutional development, or ICI, were really the drivers behind the town's development in 2023. So this was really around developments in expansions at Quality Cheese, at the Avalon Care Centre, and then we also saw some new commercial spaces at the Alder Square, and then renovated spaces at the Orangeville Mall. So those are the overall kind of key economic indicators that we're working with to start our analysis of the Orangeville business community. With that understanding in place, we dive into the key understanding of sector-specific information. This really helps us to better understand where any growth and declines are happening in our community. You'll see from this slide that there are 5 sectors that consistently represent the majority of our employment in Orangeville: healthcare, retail trade, our accommodation and food service sector, manufacturing, of course, and construction. This has been the case for a number of years and continue to see growth and large numbers of employers there. However, we also recognize that some smaller sectors are experiencing relevant growth. So we pulled out, arts and entertainment and recreation sector, as well as information and cultural industries. Although these sectors are smaller, given the strength of Orangeville's arts and culture sector right in our community, it is also important to recognize these sectors where there may be new trends and opportunities for us to address. So there's certainly a lot more information available that we could dig into, but that's basically the high level review of what we look at from an external analysis when we're conducting this annual report. We then dig into the internal piece of basically what the Economic Development and Culture Office did over the course of the year. I will say that although our team works very collaboratively to address the specific needs of our business community, we tend to report on our work in 3 streams. So general EDC initiatives, as you'll see here, then to tourism and culture, and then finally around small business support. Just gives us a better understanding of how we're impacting our local business community. So the projects and initiatives that you see here are some of the larger ones that we completed on a general level from an economic development and culture standpoint in 2023. We launched Local Intel, which is an interactive online tool that provides data to business owners who are planning, making plans for a business in Orangeville or looking to expand here in town. We supported promotion of our new community improvement plan. And we hosted some events throughout the year, including our very successful Orangeville and area job fair. You'll see on the right there that we also track how we're engaging with our community. So engagement and outreach within our community is very important, and we track those measurements from an overall perspective as well. Over to tourism and culture. You would have seen a very thorough update on this back in the spring when we brought an update on our tourism strategy to council. But I wanted to pull out a few initiatives from 2023 that are more related to culture, and they're really around public art. We had 4 new utility boxes installed through a local Carrefour artists, as well as 2 new tree sculptures. And we enhanced our digital guide that helped to promote all of our public art pieces. We also had a new event in 2023 that was really around networking and learning opportunities specifically for local artists and creative entrepreneurs. And we had some success from that and are looking to expand it again this year. So a lot more information around tourism and culture again was included in the spring. So I do want to jump over to our small business enterprise center and the work that they're doing there. So let me. The reason the Orangeville and area Small Business Enterprise Center is so important to our business community is that over 90% of our local businesses are small businesses. When we talk about small, we typically talk to 0 to 10 employees. This is obviously the heart of our community, a heart of our business community. So it's very important they have those resources available to them. And that's exactly what the Orangeville and area aspect provides. These services are free to business owners who come into our office and request our services. And they include personalized business consultations, business plan reviews. We can help with business registration, guidance on licensing, permits, programs, anything that really involves getting business done. We also have mentoring and networking opportunities, as well as workshops and events from an educational perspective. So it really is a well-rounded selection of services that these business owners can take advantage of. The SBEC is partially funded by the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, yet another long name for you. We always call it MEDGCAT in the office. And there are some very specific reporting metrics around that agreement. And that's what we've included here as some of these key indicators around the SBEC's work. I also want to draw your attention to 2 grant programs that we offer through the Orangeville and area SBEC. Again, funded through MEDGCAT. The Summer Company and the Starter Company programs are both excellent ways to promote and support new businesses in our community. The grants associated with both of these programs result in direct investment in our new and local businesses, which is obviously a win for our community. And recently we signed a new TPA, transfer payment agreement, that will extend out to 2026. This agreement includes incremental grants for our business community. We were delighted with this news, happy to see that support from the province, and we'll certainly be working forward to that in the next few years. So after we've looked at 2023, the work that we've done, we obviously work to build and enhance on that every year. So I wanted to give you a quick update in terms of what's been happening in 2024. We're over halfway through, so here we are. The biggest and most important project for our team this year really has been the economic development and culture strategy. We're working on that and plan to bring an update back to council before the end of the year. We're also continuing, obviously, to deliver our SPEC services. With that enhanced provincial funding will be extra helpful to our community. The tourism strategy, the Love Orangeville brand, will continue to be leveraged and executed within our community, support of the promotion of the community improvement plan. And then finally, we also will be hosting, we're kind of coming into our event season for the back half of the year. So you'll see some invites in the next few weeks specifically around the Orangeville Area Job Fair in October, as well as the Economic Outlook Breakfast in November. So again, that's a quick recap of what the ECDEV office does from 2023. The annual report included in the council package certainly has more information, and the EDC office actually has quite a bit more data if you really want to dig into it. Obviously, from a staff and council perspective, it can help to make decisions when that information is also provided to any businesses who may be looking for incremental data to help their business. And so with that, I can take any questions.
Perfect. Councillor Andrews, go ahead. And then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Ms. Lemire. Always a pleasure to have you in the council chambers. Some of my comments may be biased only because of the fact that I chair the EDC committee, which is the Economic Development Committee, but at the same time, I have tremendous admiration for the team that you have assembled and the work that you are doing in the Economic Development and Culture Office. A couple of things, and again, for members of council and the general public, there were some things at a high level that you spoke about, but one of the key things that's happening right now is the economic development strategy. And I have to admit that for those of us who have been involved with this process, I know members of council were asked to provide their response, but for those of us who've also partook in some of the sessions that have been held, a lot of information with a lot of key stakeholders in our community have been involved. And one thing that was very important that was a takeaway for me is communities like ours shouldn't be chasing smokestacks. And this is something that, 10, 15, 25 years ago, communities of our size would try and chase smokestacks, get that big anchor company. It doesn't work in 2024 moving forward. 90% of our business activity is small entrepreneurs, small businesses that are in fact the pulse of our community from an employment perspective, from an investment perspective. And this is something that I encourage. And through the small business enterprise, we see some great things happening with the leadership of Mark Jameson. And I just wish there was more money. I know that you've had it extended to 2026 because you do have some entrepreneurs. So there's some great things happening even from a cultural perspective. So one question, this is in fact pertaining to trying to provide opportunities for employment-ready employees. One of the challenges that I've found, and I know that we have our job fair, but one of the things that I've had through a number of conversations with employers is that they either can't get someone to work, or when they get that individual who's applied, they just don't have the life skills. So is there something that, or work skills, is there something that the EDC office has plans for? Is this, kind of surrounding what's happening with the job fair, because the job fair brings a lot of people, but it's not necessarily the quality of the applicants that the employers are getting. So is that something that the EDC office works on and provides?
Ms. Lemire?
Yes, through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Andrews, we rely on a lot of our local partners that have the expertise in that sort of support for both employers and for job seekers or potential employees. We work closely with our colleagues at Georgian College's Career and Employment Center. They provide a lot of training and information and support so that potential employees can better understand what they need to bring to the table in order to get a job, to be successful at a job. We've also been reaching out to other groups such as Polycultural, and they're another local community, mostly working with newcomers to the area and trying to find, ways that potential training, can there be business training involved with that? So I would say we typically rely on our partners who have a little bit more experience and certainly the education and the breadth around that to really bring that information forward. But we help support it through events like the job fair. So for example, Polycultural and Georgian College will both be there as partners at the job fair to basically help job seekers and also engage with employers along the way.
And one more question. This is as per the marketing campaign that falls under the tourism of Orangeville, Love Orangeville. I have commented to you a number of times, and I know that this is a brilliant idea. I think that we have to kind of elevate it a little bit more. I think it's an opportunity for us, and I know budgetary components are always a part of that, but we have 7 of us here who would love to get a t-shirt so that we could end up, of course, publicizing this on our social media sites, and wherever we go, whenever we go, we can proudly wear the Love Orangeville insignia, because it's something that I think that we can do a little bit more. And, and again, we've spoken about this, but this is, I don't want it to be a missed opportunity. For those of us that are sitting here, we love Orangeville and we want other people to know about it. Invest, come here, spend your money. That's what it's all about. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. Through you, Worship. Just wondering, my question is about the youth. Is the job fair geared for them as well? And because I hear that a lot of students just can't find employment.
Through me, Mayor Post to Councillor Stevens, yes, everyone and anyone is welcome to join the job fair. Our job fair is typically held in the fall, but certainly, so you may preclude from summer student jobs and that sort of employment, but we work closely with our colleagues up in Shelburne as well. So their job fair is in the spring. And they have a lot more, say summer employment and that sort of thing. In both cases, we're certainly students, anyone of any age is certainly welcome to come. We do try and post the information around what jobs are available and what employers will be attending the job fair. So potential job seekers can look at that and see what might be available to them. But we encourage everyone to come out, if nothing else, to get training and information from our partners at Georgian College and to see what else may be out there. It's an opportunity to speak to employers and see what's happening in the community as well. So youth are certainly invited, and we can make an extra effort to get them out to the job fair this year as well.
Thank you. Any additional questions by any members of council? No. Thank you very much for being here, Ms. Lemire. Thank you for another great presentation. Your team is always doing great work, so we appreciate it. Okay, we will move into the consent agenda portion of the item. The following items have been compiled under the consent agenda to facilitate a single vote. Council may remove any item from the consent agenda. So is there any items from the consent that were going to be removed? Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Prendergast, then Councillor Andrews.
Yes, Your Worship. So I would like to speak to item 15.1.
Which one, sorry? 15?
15.1.
That's yours. That's your notice of motion.
So I was advised by the clerk that I needed to pull it out.
To pull out the notice of motion, because that's not part of the consent agenda, right? So that one would be separate. It's 13.2, 13.3, 13.1 that are included. Madam Clerk?
Through you, my apologies. I assumed that the notice of motion was part of consent.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you. No, so you're good.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Prendergast? Can you turn on your mic, please?
My apologies, Mayor Post, through you. 13.1.3 and 13.1.10. So the bill 185.
Okay, and Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. 13.1.9.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we good? Okay. Perfect. So the recommendation is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for individual consideration, which are 13.1.3, 13.1.9, and 13.1.10. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will start with 13.1.3. Councillor Prendergast, if you'd like to speak to that one.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I'd like to thank the staff for the very detailed report. This was based off a motion that was brought forward earlier, which preceded an event that happened at the Orangeville Agricultural Society, or a location in Mono, where there was a kite fighting event that took place. And as a result, a lot of hazardous material was strewn over Mono and adjacently into Island Lake, and found in trees and in the rivers and the streams and the lake itself. And it created quite an environmental impact, which negatively impacted the adjacent area to where this took place. I looked at the staff report, just looking at option 1, which was proposing an education campaign in lieu of a bylaw. Recently in June, the municipality of Mono, where this event did take place, they did put a bylaw in place with pretty severe penalties. The first infraction is a $5,000 penalty if you are caught kite fighting. And just to be clear, kite fighting is not flying a kite on a windy day made out of nylon. Kite fighting is a combative sport with strings that are made of steel on a 400-foot reel. And the aim is to fell your opponent's kite, and then it just disappears, and not into the ether, it disappears into our environment. And these strings have created havoc. They are dangerous for public safety, and my chief concern is the environment. I just wrote this here. So while kite flying is a cherished cultural activity, kite fighting presents significant environmental and safety concerns that we cannot ignore. The strings used in kite fighting, often made of hazardous materials like metal or glass-coated nylon, pose serious risks to both people and wildlife. Although only one kite fighting event has occurred in our area, the environmental impact, particularly on Island Lake, was alarming. Hazardous strings were left behind, endangering wildlife and polluting a vital natural resource. We must act to prevent further damage to our community's environment. For these reasons, I strongly support option 2, which would prohibit kite fighting on both private and public property in Orangeville. This bylaw would protect our parks, our public spaces, our natural areas from the harmful effects of kite fighting, while still allowing safe and responsible kite flying. Enforcement of this bylaw may present challenges as outlined in the staff report, but that's like all of our bylaws in Orangeville. They're complaint driven. But our commitment to environmental stewardship must come first. By taking this step, we are demonstrating our dedication to protecting the natural beauty and the safety of our town. I know that public education campaigns are essential and beneficial. However, I don't think in this instance we would be targeting the intended audience because, as mentioned, it is a transient sport. A lot of these participants don't reside in our municipality. Thank you, Mayor Post.
Councillor Andrews? And then Councillor Stevens.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I'm in full support of Councillor Pendergrass's comments. We've actually had an opportunity to speak to this. And my concern is public safety. And, you know, I take a look at our community where we have potentially 4 or 5 locations where something like this spontaneously could happen. It's the education piece that we may be missing the individuals who are not a part of our community, who would be in most cases the ones that are actually doing this. I have nothing against normal kite flying. I know that ODSS and some of other school, even our parks, I've seen a number of residents when the conditions are right. Murray's Mountain, beautiful to see kids and their families enjoying fighting, or not fighting, flying a kite. They may be fighting as they are flying the kite, but it's this type of kite flying that I have a real problem with because of the type of kite wire that is being used. There are a number of examples where individuals have been seriously injured. And in fact, we spoke about, where this particular sport originates, where in fact it is now, correct me if I'm wrong, it is prohibited. So, I think the idea of having a bylaw in place would at least have the punitive implications for individuals if they are caught.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, through your worship. I echo my 2 colleagues to the far east there. I'm going to go for option number 2 as well, just for the safety and the concern of our residents. As part of this Credit Valley Conservation Authority, the mess ended up mostly in Island Lake, and it took a lot to get it cleaned up. So thank you.
Okay, was there any additional comments or feedback from anybody? So if I'm hearing correctly, Councillor Prendergast, you'd like to move a motion that states that report CPS 2024-46 response to council direction regarding kite fighting be received, and that staff be directed to proceed with option 2 to implement a kite fighting bylaw on public and private property. Yes? Okay. As outlined in report CPS 2024-46. Was there a seconder for that motion? Councillor McIntosh, any last questions or comments? Madam Clerk, you've captured that? Yes? Okay, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Next, we will move on to item 13.1.9, the Highway 9 and Rolling Hills traffic update. Councillor Andrews?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I wanted to circle back to this. And again, I think that, as much as this could have been processed quite quickly through the consent agenda, I think from a general public perspective, I just wanted to highlight the fact that there has been a lot of work on this location. As much as we've had, of course, Spencer and other areas, and Deputy Mayor Taylor is going to be bringing forth a notice of motion. This is a high traffic area. As you know firsthand, I spoke with our member of provincial parliament to highlight the concerns, provided a lot of data in a report. We had the opportunity last year in London at AMO to speak with the minister at the time, who was in fact the Minister of MTO. And there seemed to be some interest. I know that there's mitigation that has been provided, but I still think that there needs to be more. And I know that there are steps, there's some restrictions. Even part of the report highlighted the size of the sign, stop on red. If there's anything we can do to improve the safety of the residents, in particular, the children that are in fact walking across that intersection and our crossing guards. I've had a number of conversations, and I know that our crossing guard detachment has increased the numbers there just to make sure that, no one in fact is potentially at harm, but there's still people that are not following the information, the signs, slow down, stop, So I think that this is more of not just public education. This is just a point of contention that I have that I'd like to see more done. I know there's a process. Mr. Koselleck, I know that you and your team have done a lot of work on trying to get some things done there, but I just feel that Highway 9 is just one of those anomalies within our system, transportation system, that, we've got a forgotten island there, which potentially could pose some challenges. So,
Mr. Koselleck?
Yeah, through your worship, I think we have had a good relationship with the MTO staff. It's been really good. We met them, I guess it was last fall. This year they've come forward and they've agreed to a number of the different improvements. A few of the big ones in my mind are the ladder crossing, putting it on the road. It's not an MTO standard. There's a bit of a discussion with them, but to me, people see that when they're driving. It helps you know there's a crossing. They put bigger community safety signs up. They've also changed the push buttons, so the same ones as in the town, so they're more responsive. Also put signs up, no turning on red, and stop here on red, trying to encourage people. They've also had discussions with the OPP to have additional patrolling in the area to try and enforce it. A few of the items that we wanted, flashing signs for the community safety zone, they don't have it in other areas. And I think one of the big problems being it's a big entity with the MTO, they have to be consistent across different areas. So one of the things they were going to look at too is an option of doing a pilot project. Again, I don't think it'll happen overnight, but it's something we'll try and work with them and maybe put it in for next year or the following year. But I think it'll be a continual process that we will have improvements because, as you mentioned, it is a safety issue going through the town. So thank you.
Councillor Andrews, anything additional you want to add? Anybody else want to speak on that item first? The only other thing that I wanted to say is to echo what Mr. Koselleck has said, that working with the MTO has been excellent on this item. They've been very responsive. They took all of the feedback. We've met with them several times on location as well. And they've taken all of the ideas and suggestions really to heart and done some really good investigation on them and gave us good reasons to the ones that they couldn't implement right away. I like in the report the long-term chart that shows all of the different implementation pieces to show that they know that this remains an area of concern and it will continue to stay an area that's on their radar. They do have long-term plans that they know are going to take budgetary changes, some of them take policy changes, some of them take something like a pilot project to implement, but they've listened to the concerns of the residents, the crossing guards, council, town staff, everybody. They've listened to the voices and really taken it to heart, which has been really rewarding to see.
And I want to thank you for your leadership on this. I know that Mr. Koselleck and yourself have spoken to MTO, and I think that what we see is some progress here, and we are going to see that community location improve its safety considerably. But thank you again for this update and again the report itself.
Absolutely. Thank you. The recommendation in the report is that report INS 2024-38, Highway 9 and Rolling Hills traffic update be received. Can I have a motion to receive, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Andrews. Any last comments or questions? All in favor? And that one's carried unanimously. Next, we will turn it over to Councillor Prendergast for the overview of Bill 185. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I have 3 questions for Mr. Koselleck tonight and Mr. Ward, who's online. I did send the questions earlier. Bill 185 offers opportunities to streamline development within municipalities, and it also requires us to adapt and ensure that our community's interests remain at the forefront of the planning process. So my first question to Mr. Koselleck is, Bill 185 allows municipalities to adopt servicing allocation policies. How does staff envision this working in Orangeville, particularly given our current servicing constraints with water allocation? And what criteria could be used to allocate water and sewage capacity? And how will this policy impact future development approvals?
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship. Right now, we're working on developing a policy for water and sewer allocation. We'll bring it back to council in the next month or two. With that, I guess we'll look at an annual allocation for water and wastewater for development, and it'll help focus on sort of developments we need. And also, one of the things we're looking at as part of the policy is having a expiry period. If you don't develop within 2-3 years, whatever that period is, you lose your allocation. So we don't have people that are planning on developing, holding allocation for 10 years. And that's one of the things we want to try and have timely development, and we're hoping that'll help encourage it. Also, I guess we're looking at criteria for special circumstances. I guess there may be certain types of development that is a priority for council. If you have a local business expanding, it may be better to allocate that. So we're looking at a full policy to bring forward. And again, it'll probably be about a month or two that we'll bring that forward.
Yes, thank you. As per the staff report, the reversal of the phase-in requirements for development charges and the reinstatement of growth-related studies as DC eligible costs are welcome changes. So how does staff plan to integrate these changes in our ongoing review of the DC bylaw? And what specific benefits do we expect from these adjustments?
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship. It's one of the things, it's nice that we're able to add the studies back in the development charges. Our new development charge study is going on right now. So a lot of it helps us plan for the future as part of the development. One of the ones we put back in was our transportation plan that looks at our road network to see what's needed in the future for additional roads, turning lanes, sidewalks. And a lot of that's due to development. We're having more development, which is causing more traffic. So it's nice that development pays for development. I think that's been the philosophy of development charges, and it's nice that's coming back. So a lot of the studies we're doing are as a result of development to see how it's being accommodated, and also to make sure we do have provisions for it for the future.
One more question. I feel like
Okay,
Columbo.
go ahead, Councillor
Okay. Given the pre-application consultations are now voluntary under Bill 185, how does staff plan to encourage developers to continue participating in this process?
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship. I think developers over the last few years have gotten accustomed to it in other municipalities, and I think there's an advantage to both the municipality and the developer. With the pre-consultation, we can meet, talk about items at a high level. They have a clear expectation of what's required when they submit their plans, what plans they need to submit. And I guess it works, in my mind, good for the developer and the municipality. If a developer says, I don't have to pre-consult, here's the plans, they run the risk that they're incomplete, they get rejected, they have to submit again. Okay, if they're not complete again, they get rejected. So I think most developers, especially ones that are efficient, will find the pre-consultation great for everybody.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments on that item? No, seeing none. The recommendation then is that report INS 2024-41, the overview of Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act 2024 be received. Can I have a motion to receive? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. That finishes up the consent agenda portion, and we will move into the addendum item, which was labeled under other business. I wanted to take a moment just to talk briefly about the CAO performance appraisal process. And I want to be clear, this isn't about a performance appraisal for our current CAO. This is about the process or lack thereof that exists currently within the town of Orangeville. So because we currently don't have a policy or a procedure in place for how council does the CAO performance appraisal process, the process that I've been utilizing in the absence of one is that I reach out to council about a month ahead of a performance appraisal being due, ask for feedback for the performance appraisal, take all of council's feedback, write up the performance appraisal, send it back out to council for final thoughts. And then once I get the approval from all of council on the contents of the performance appraisal, I've been scheduling a one-on-one meeting with the CAO to deliver the performance review. So I've done that already for a 6-month review and have started the process for the 1-year review. But in the absence of there being a formal policy, I understand that, you know, I think that it would be good for us to have a conversation on what we want that to look like. So there's 2 things I'm looking for tonight from council. I'd like direction on how to proceed with completing any outstanding CAO performance appraisals for the remainder of this year for 2024. I'm happy to continue with the status quo with what we've been doing, or to change up the policy if that's the will of council. Additionally, I would love to have direction go to staff for the creation of a policy and a procedure for future CAO performance appraisals for council's consideration. I think it's really important that once, you know, all of us see the value of doing performance reviews, but I think once all of us are no longer in these chairs, it's important that a policy and a process exists so that future CAOs and future councils have an idea of how they can proceed, and that all future and current CAOs have the opportunity for the valuable feedback of a performance appraisal. So I would open the floor for that if there's any comments or questions. Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Your Worship. I truly appreciate how you have framed it. And I like how you've identified keeping status quo for the remainder of this year, and then provide an opportunity for staff to provide us with some alternatives to that performance review process.
Excellent. And that's in discussions, preliminary discussions with staff. We've talked about them being able to do an environmental scan of what other municipalities are doing for their CAO appraisal process and give us some recommendations of best practices that we can choose from. So that would be great to have that direction, and I'd be open to additional feedback. Yeah, Councillor Stevens.
Sorry, thank you. How was it done in the past? Because this is my first term, so.
It really hasn't been done in the past. There was an early process that was started during the last term of council that I would say probably got a bit derailed with COVID and other things going on. So I don't recall, I think there was a small subcommittee that was formed to write the performance appraisal, but I don't recall how it was delivered. I don't recall, but because there hasn't been a policy or process, I would say that CAO performance appraisals have been done inconsistently over the entirety of the existence of our corporation.
Thank you. And I look forward to staff bringing a policy.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions? Yeah, Councillor Pendergast and then Deputy Mayor.
Just Mayor Post, I'd like to thank you for your leadership on this, because it is important to streamline policy, and also the CAO is our employee, and this is a fair assessment of their work product. So I thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Pendergast. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to say, to me, I've been involved in many evaluation processes given to me and also done to my employees. And one of the worst things is when there's more than one person in the room. Typically, it's an intimate exchange between one individual with another individual, and it can be quite personal. And in this instance, I think the head of council would represent council and have that with our one employee, which is the CAO. It's important, though, that all of council weigh in. And I'm wondering if, I've spoken with Councillor Andrews. I know you've done these things a million times. I've probably done them a little less than yourself, but quite a bit. And I wonder if council might benefit from a unified form that they could weigh in with, here's what you're doing well, here's what you aren't doing well, here's my wishes for the future that we could accomplish together, something like that, like a little triangle report, but so that we could all use the same form. And then there was key deliverables with timelines. So right now, when you emailed us, I thought, oh, it's been a year, and kudos to you for marking in your calendar, or however you had done that to remind us all to do it. But I think it would be good in the policy that we would create that there's key timelines given, and maybe there is meeting minutes put into calendars ahead of time so that we can, function on our own and supply you without you having to babysit us to do it. But I would just suggest that everyone needs to weigh in. And if you haven't weighed in, it's too bad, you've missed an opportunity. And I think it's best if it's one-on-one.
I see nods of notes being taken by corporate services team, so I don't think I need to formalize those comments. I appreciate them though. Any additional questions, comments, thoughts before we proceed? Otherwise, I can put a motion on the floor if council's supportive of it. Okay. The suggested motion is that the mayor be authorized to proceed with completing any outstanding CAO performance appraisals for the remainder of 2024, and that staff be directed to develop a policy for future CAO performance appraisals for council's consideration. A seconder, Councillor Andrews? Yeah. Any additional thoughts, questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Now we will move on to notices of motion prior to meeting. So I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Very good. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to read the entire motion, but I will speak to it. First of all, I just want to offer some clarification. There was some residents that came here tonight and spoke about this ahead of time. And honest to goodness, I couldn't have set that up any better if I tried. These two events are not tied to each other. We did not get ahead of time and compare notes. And just for verification of that, I did cook this up with Mayor Post probably 6 weeks ago. And I know you were waiting on me to put this forward. Kept getting this earnest, are you doing this, are you doing this? And Mayor Post had encouraged me. I brought it forward to her and she said, yes, I agree. And I worked with Tim and his team and they helped me kind of work it through, and then these people showed up and were passionate about their neighborhood. So they're not tied. There was something going on prior to this, but why would you put this forward? And candidly, I'm tired of this, right? What we're hearing about is a council that doesn't care, a council who's not committed. We allow all these unsafe things to happen in our town. The truth is we've done a kabillion things. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be another way to get out of what you do. So in my mind, what I'm asking is that we simply ask our staff who are engineers and know the business way more than any of us would ever know, to come back to us with options. And what I'm specifically getting at when I'm talking about this is photo radar. And what would happen is someone would speed, and in my mind, if the speed limit is 40 and you go 41, you're going to get a ticket. There isn't any ifs, ands, or buts about it. There'll be a way that it would be implemented as per our engineer here, but the results of it is there's going to be a cash penalty. And I can already see the Facebook warriors lining up saying what a bad human being I am because I'm trying to take money out of people's pockets and I'm padding the town's pockets or padding my own pockets. Council won't benefit financially from the speeding tickets that you receive. And to be honest with you, the town won't really benefit either. And I'll be clear as to why that would be. There's a cost to implement a program like this. And I guarantee you that whomever we catch, it'll be a very small number of people that will be speeding, especially once they get used to the idea that there's cameras there. Like, who isn't going to know that there's a camera on your street? Don't speed by it. So it's going to start off as this massive thing, and it's going to get very, very small, and we will solve the problem. But there won't be a financial benefit. So get off your keyboard and don't write that we're going to be padding our pockets with it financially, because it simply isn't true. What I'm asking is that staff go away and research options for us. And options could be that we buy a system. Options could be that we lease a system. Options could be that we employ an agency who would run it. Options could be that we don't do it. I don't know. And I start with Settlers Creek simply because I know it. I'm the guy that's advocated for lights and stop signs and watched cars go by and heard people yelling at me. And, you know, it really is a rough street. I'll be clear, I don't live there anymore. I do it because I know that there's a problem there. However, I also know that there's problems in other areas of the town. So I'm not suggesting that we would just do Settlers Creek. We would start with Settlers Creek. Because that's my suggestion, it's my motion. Council can decide as they wish to go forward, but that's where I think we should go. But then we would see how it does in Settlers Creek as a test, and you have to test somewhere, and then potentially roll it out to other problem areas within town. And I guess the last piece is I'm not asking that we do this. I'm just asking that we allow staff to go away and research it. So that's kind of the gist of the motion here today. And then coming out of a meeting that Mayor Post had earlier today with staff, and then the clerk's office contacted me and we had a discussion, it was suggested that the notice of motion be changed slightly, and it is ever so slightly. So I think we would need permission to do this. Do you want me to read it first, or do you want to set it? Did I turn it to you?
Yeah, I can set it up when we get there. I know that there's some questions first, but essentially we would still have the main motion go to the floor because that's the one that was in the agenda. And then we would have an amendment to it. And I've got a proposed amendment that I'd like to suggest after, but we'll get your motion on the floor first. But I think we've got some questions first.
Okay,
So
great.
Councillor McIntosh, and then Councillor Sherwood, and then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for the record, I do think it's a great idea. It's something we need to look into. Most of my concerns, Deputy Mayor, you actually answered in your speech. I'm concerned that, again, Spencer Avenue is not the only street in this town. And if you ask anybody on any street, they're going to say we have a problem. And we can't have cameras on every street in town, so we have to go after particular streets. And it's not a simple process. It's not a case of just sticking a camera up there and sitting back and waiting for people to speed. There's a lot of work that has to go through. Lawyers are involved. We went through this with the county, and the county decided it was just too much work. So I do think it's a good idea. And for these people that think it's a cash grab, well, slow down. We won't get your money. So, and people will say that, but thank you.
Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. To you, I really love the idea of ASE. I have a problem with the fact that Spencer Avenue is mentioned 4 times in this motion, only because of, as it's been stated, Spencer Avenue isn't the only problem. Our general manager just provided earlier statistics. There's not a speeding problem. 3 vehicles out of 1,000. I'm going to tell you, the neighborhoods around here are all going to be screaming, saying we have way more. The gentleman that lives at Cedar Drive, 13%. The fact that Spencer Avenue is mentioned here 4 times really isn't sitting well with me. But I'm not saying I'm against the people in Spencer Avenue. I did heard her, like I said, I heard the general manager say there's not a speeding issue there. I would like to see this revamped, that it says that ASE technology be investigated, and that it comes back that we identify potential areas. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm going to support it if it's just specific to Spencer Avenue.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Remember way back when the province did this and they had it on the 407, they had it on the 410, they put it all over. So that doesn't exist any longer? Like you can't, it's not mobile?
So the photo radar system that used to exist was abolished by the province, and then it was a long time before they brought back ASE technology. But ASE technology is highly restricted by the province. There's a lot of regulations that go along with it so that it can't be used as a hidden way to catch speeders. So there is guidelines on how long the notice period is that a sign has to go up before you can deploy the technology. And I don't know those numbers offhand, but it's weeks before you can actually put the device there. You have to put up a sign that says camera coming soon in this area. Once it's up, it has to have signage around it as well, saying that there's a speed camera coming. There's also rules about where they can go within your municipality. It has to be in a community safety zone. I know as the town of Mono is learning, it cannot be on a a road that has a speed limit of 80. They're looking at Airport Road, which is their huge problem area, but because of the current provincial regulations, ASE technology can't be deployed on an 80. It also can't be deployed on a provincial highway. So I know looking at like Highway 9 area where we have the issue at Rolling Hills, currently under the way that the legislation is, it cannot be deployed there. So there are very, very strict requirements that have to be met by a municipality. And I think that's what's important to capture in this motion, is that when we look at ASE as a solution to our community, we need to look at it as a holistic solution for speeding in our community, period. Once we decide that we want to move ahead with that, after staff comes back with recommendations and data from their search, we would then have to basically sign an agreement with the province saying that when we deploy ASE technology, it will meet all of their requirements, including notice periods and signage and all of those things. So there would be specific areas that it would have to be deployed in. So for example, Cedar Drive right now wouldn't qualify for ASE technology because it's not a community safety zone. However, if council wanted Cedar Drive to be considered an area where ASE would go, we could designate it a community safety zone, set up the requirements of signage to have it meet those requirements, and then we could deploy it there. So depending on what we do with ASE technology, I'll use Caledon as an example. Caledon is using ASE technology, and I don't know how many units they have. Maybe one of our former Caledon employees knows, but they do have a few units and they do move them. So an area where they started with was in Alton, in the village of Alton, on 136. There was a significant speeding issue there coming from kind of Osprey Valley Golf Course into the village. So that was one of their first areas where they deployed it. The signs went up, the notice was there. The signs were up for quite a while before it was deployed. They deployed the ASE technology for a couple of months, and now it's moved again. Why? Because the speeding problem went away. So it started as a pretty beneficial, yes, they were making money off of it, but once people knew the camera was there, they changed their driving behaviors. And that's what we want to see out of this. We don't want to collect fines from the residents of Orangeville. That's not the point. We want to change the drivers' behaviors in those areas. So my hope is that we could start with a couple of units and have maybe 2 of them deployed if we decide to go ahead with ASE. And my vision would be that we would have a couple of areas that would be our first areas where we know we've got some issues. Hopefully they only have to stay for a couple of months and then they stop making money because people start driving according to the speed limit, and then we can move them to other problem areas in the community. So I think in answer to your question, if we decide to go ahead and proceed with ASE technology, we're basically signing an agreement with the province saying that when we deploy it, we're going to deploy it to their regulations. And then we have the freedom to put it wherever we want, as long as it meets the requirements of the province when it comes to, signage and those kinds of things.
Thank you very much for that thorough answer.
Was that a really long-winded answer? I apologize.
You know what? It was great. And I think, I know I learned from it, and I'm sure the public did as well.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
No, thank you. Any additional questions before Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Prendergast?
Just as a clarification, the commentary about Spencer Avenue is completely fair. The idea that I had when I hatched this was ASE, as I understand it, has to be deployed in a community safety zone. And council made that street a community safety zone. And that is one of the driving factors of why I did what I did and referenced the things. But the second point would be again, Mayor Post earlier today, and then the clerk's department helped to change the motion, and that is what will be voted on prior to voting on this motion. It's just going to be changed in the wording, and I'm hopeful that it'll answer your concerns, Councillor Sherwood.
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you to Deputy Mayor Taylor. Thank you for bringing forward this motion. In the interest of community safety, I recognize you as a champion of road safety, so thank you for taking the lead on this. We have 11 public schools in Orangeville. For a population of 30,000, that is a lot of public schools, and that's a lot of hopefully cognizant drivers driving 40 or less. I would welcome the addition of these ASE units. And I just had one question. I'm wondering how we designate an area a community safety zone. Is there a process, Mayor Post, or?
Mr. Koslek?
Through your worship, that would be something we delegate by council through bylaw. Typically, it's in areas where there's schools, churches, other areas where you'd want to have reduced speed and more pedestrians. And just wanted to clarify also the notification period. It's a 90-day notification prior to being installed for a photo radar. It's one of the things the province is really trying to make it more, not a cash grab, but more of an enforcement education component. So people know it's coming, people are aware of it. When they get a ticket, they get it. And different places do it differently. I know before in Brampton, they had a large number of cameras. They were owned and operated by the municipality. They moved them around. They did the signage. They were the ones that went to the courts to fight them. Recently, there's been a few private companies doing it, third-party private companies. And for smaller municipalities, we were talking to Essa Township. They recently introduced it, and the private company would come in and basically do everything. They'd bring their own cameras, they'd deploy them, they'd do a lot of the work. If it went to the billing, they take care of everything pretty well. So that's one of the things when we bring the report back, we'll bring the different options, whether the municipality buys them and does them, or whether we outsource it. So we will have more information, but it's a new initiative that's really come to the forefront in the last few years. So it's a great way to slow the traffic down and help with the education, but we'll bring that back shortly.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Prendergast? Any last questions before we look at putting the motion on the floor? No. Okay, so the motion is moved by Deputy Mayor. Can we just have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Andrews. So I'm going to suggest my changes to it as an amendment if possible. So if everybody can open their, or I can read it if you'd like. Paragraph number 4, I would suggest that we delete, which is the paragraph that says, whereas Settlers Creek, specifically Spencer Avenue, has had numerous concerns raised about speed and safety from its residents. I would suggest we delete that paragraph. I would also suggest that we delete paragraph 7, which says, whereas in recognition that Spencer Avenue adjacent to Spencer Avenue School having been designated a school safety zone, be removed. And then item paragraph 9, I would change to say, therefore be it resolved that Orangeville Council directs staff to prepare a report on the potential implementation of ASEs in existing community safety zones with consideration given to Spencer Avenue, and that the report include details and costs associated with this implementation. So that would it would allow the staff to look at ASE as a solution for the community, but it would recognize that Spencer Avenue is one of the areas that we've recognized as a problem. So I think it's important that we go that route so that it covers both intentions of the motion. So I can read the whole thing if that's easier for everybody with my changes. Oh, sure. Yeah. If anybody wants to have a look at it. Whereas many Ontario municipalities are experiencing road safety issues, including speeding, and whereas Dufferin County Council and over 20 municipalities have shared that we are having a road safety emergency in many areas of our province, and whereas Orangeville has received and continues to receive significant concerns about road safety from residents, and whereas automated speed enforcement, ASE, is an effective tool that penalizes egregious speeding, and whereas notwithstanding the limitations of current provincial mandated rules that militate against the best deployment of this technology, and whereas vehicular traffic within the school safety zone continue to drive at unacceptable speeds, therefore be it resolved that Orangeville Council directs staff to prepare a report on the potential implementation of ASEs in existing community safety zones with consideration given to Spencer Avenue, and that the report include details and costs associated with this implementation, and that upon implementation, staff be directed to report back to Council within 1 year to review successes and identify other potential areas for implementation within the town. I'm happy to do that as an amendment. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you very much for you and Deputy Mayor for bringing this and at least got it on the table and got discussion and got things going. I like the fact that we're not showing favoritism to one specific neighborhood, that we are listening and we hear the concerns of this problems throughout. So I'm thankful to you and the deputy for amending this to kind of fulfill everybody. Can I ask a quick question of staff, if I could, Your Worship?
Of course.
Do we know how many community safety zones we have designated throughout town? Sorry about putting
Tim,
you
on the spot you go.
I'm sorry, Tim.
I'm not sure, but I guess there's 11 schools, so I know we have at least 11, but probably in the area of the arenas also. So there's probably in the order of 20-25 would be my guess.
That's fabulous. So maybe coming forward, we may be having some more community safety zones implemented.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that can come out of this as well. And I think it would be best going forward, once we get these recommendations, that we take some of those priority areas that we've already recognized. We know where we're hearing concerns from, and that we do some of the data work to make sure that when ASE technology is available to us, we can do the right things to make sure that it can be implemented in the areas where we need it the most. And I think that this motion will give us the leverage to be able to do that. Do I need a seconder for my amendment? Yes, I do, right? Councillor McIntosh? Do you have something else to say? No. Any additional questions or comments before we vote on it? So we will vote on the amendment first, which is on the table now. So can I have a vote on that? All in favor of the amended motion? That's carried unanimously. And now we do have to vote on the main motion as amended. Can I have a vote on that one, please? All in favor? Yeah, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We got through that. That was excellent. Good work, everybody. Okay, so that was the only notice of motion that we've gotten prior to meeting. Was there any notices of motion tonight that anybody would like to bring forward? Nope, seeing none. Okay, so we will move into announcements. I will open that up to Councillor Andrews first.
Very quickly, through your worship, I just wanted to congratulate the organizers for the Dufferin Film Festival, which was held on Friday and Saturday in our community. And of course, a lot of activity took place above the council chambers in the Opera House. It was well organized, well choreographed. The selection of films, the genres that were presented. This was, of course, the inaugural year, but I really anticipate this is going to be a big event in the years to come. So congratulations to the organizers of the event.
Thank you for that feedback. Congratulations, Nick and Kelly. I heard it was fantastic. I wish I could have been there. Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you, Mayor Post. I just wanted to inform everyone that you still have a week left to submit an entry for Orangeville's Best Garden Contest. It can be a front garden, a back garden, a vegetable garden, a planter garden, a container garden, anything you want. You can nominate yourself or a neighbor, and you just have to email a photo of the garden along with the address to info@orangeville.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, I just wanted to pick up on what Councillor Andrews had said and validate exactly what he said, and also just a little addition. Those things don't go on without the sponsorships. And I think it even ties into the economic development group and what they were saying, and that is our town is driven by a group of small businesses who keep doing things for our community. So top of mind, and I apologize to the folks that I'm going to miss, but Greystones, Mochaberry, and the Bluebird were tremendous throughout that entire event. So I just wanted to add that to yours, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Any additional announcements? Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. We just want to make a shout out for some events that are happening this weekend in our town. There's this in good spirits on Friday night. And Saturday, the ever popular Taste of Orangeville. And I just want to put a plug in for the Theatre Orangeville production of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, August 23rd to 25th. Buy your tickets now and consider getting a subscription.
Excellent. Any additional announcements? I have one if there's none left. I wanted to share the wonderful news about our Orangeville Northmen under-9 teams. Our two under-9 teams, Team 1 and Team 2, just came back from the Ontario Provincials in Whitby, and both teams won gold. The under-9 one team won gold in overtime in their A division, which ultimately means that they're the best in the province out of 78 other teams. Our under-9 2 team won in their C division. They played 4 overtime periods to take the win over Windsor to bring home the gold. So I just wanted to give a huge congratulations to the Junior A Northmen for all the work and dedication from not only the athletes, but the coaching staff and the sponsorship that goes into supporting lacrosse in our community. Congratulations to all the teams on their hard work and keeping Orangeville on the map. And the Northmen are going to the Minto Cup, which is very exciting. So we've got lots of great Northman news. Was there any additional announcements for anybody? Seeing none. Okay, we will move into the bylaws. The recommendation is that all the bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 18 be read 3 times and finally passed. 18.1 is the bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of special charge upon rateable property in the Orangeville Business Improvement Area in the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville for the year of 2024. We also have a bylaw to appoint Jeffrey Abrams and Janice Atwood as Integrity Commissioners for the Town of Orangeville for a 5-year term and authorize entering into an agreement with Principals Integrity for the provision of Integrity Commissioner services. A bylaw to appoint Rebecca Medeiros as Acting Treasurer for the Town of Orangeville. A bylaw to appoint Nathan Nunes as Chief Building Official for the Town of Orangeville, and a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its closed and regular council meetings held today, August 12th. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.